Again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for April 7, 2020. I call this meeting to order and again ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kammerer?
Here.
CARBONARO?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Cabrera?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranke?
Present.
President Wallace?
Here. One item on our committee this evening is under Police and Health, Chairman Carbonaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. The item that we have is a traffic calming policy request. At this time, I would turn that over to Deputy Chief Durbin.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. President and board for allowing me to present again this evening. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So if you'll recall, back on the Committee of the Whole meeting on February 4th, the Police Department presented a proposal to the committee seeking an enactment of a neighborhood traffic calming policy. We talked about what traffic calming actually is, what our proposed policy contains, and how this policy would help us to establish protocols in a petition process for handling resident requests to install traffic calming devices. Those would be things such as additional signage, lane markings, speed bumps, speed humps, and the conversation turned to a real life example that we experienced last year regarding the installation of LED flashing stop signs at the intersection of North and Western Avenue. And out of that evening's presentation, a couple of follow-up questions were posed by board members, and we went back and did our best to address those two questions. One of them was how many other communities with these types of traffic calming policies have received back petitions attaining 66% in favor threshold. If you'll recall, we arrived at a number of 66% after looking at several other municipalities' traffic calming policies. Many of those ranged anywhere from a 60% in favor threshold all the way up to an 80%. We felt that 66% was somewhere in the middle there. It represented a 2/3 majority of residents of an affected area that would have to be in favor of moving forward with a traffic calming proposal to the village through a petition process. The other question that came up that we were asked to address is, because we did talk about the LED stop signs, and when we had a listening session with residents of the affected neighborhoods there, we had a mixed, kind of a mixed bag of what the problems actually were. They weren't just stop sign centric problems. They were speeding autos. They were volumes of traffic at the time. And then we also heard from certain residents who were not in favor of the flashing LEDs. I think it was believed at the time the board had arrived at a solution that was economical and would work and help remind people to come to stops there, along with our enforcement efforts at the police department. However, some people felt that they were an eyesore and they never wanted them in the first place. So we looked at that as well. Just to summarize, we reached out to 7 different municipalities from which we borrowed elements to craft our own proposed policy. Of those municipalities, only one, the village of Lincolnwood, reported that they had any petitions returned, and they had an 80% in favor threshold. So they, in the last year, they received 17 requests for petitions, meaning they sent out petitions on 17 occasions. Only 4 of those petitions came back meeting their 80% in favor threshold. And of those 4, only 1 met the final qualification for moving forward for their municipality to actually consider the construction of a traffic calming measure. As well, we conducted a survey, and I'll try and share this. Bear with me if you would. Try and share this on my screen. All right, I lost my lost my Zoom camera. There we go. This is just a graphic representing the survey of residents who attended the listening session that we held at the police department back in August 2019. Between phone and internet responses or email questionnaire responses, we only got 10 responses back, which is a pretty good percentage considering that many of the people who attended were married couples or partners or whatever the case might have been. So the numbers of people that were representative at the listening session were, there were a smaller amount of households than there were actually people. So 10 responses probably wasn't too bad in this particular case. Just briefly, I won't go through these unless everybody would like to. I believe maybe you were afforded these in your board packet, but really I wanted to put up a graphic to show that outside of the perception of speeding autos here, with 80% of the residents perceiving that speeding autos in their neighborhood remains the same. That was the only one that had an overwhelming majority of people who perceived the problem to be the same way. And we use the language perceived in all these questions, not because we don't believe it to be the case, but quite often what people's perceptions of speeds or problems in their neighborhoods, we often can address by getting statistical data through our traffic studies. And quite often the perceptions don't equal or measure up to what the data actually tells us. So, the perceived language isn't meant to be condescending in any way. It's just that the perceptions often differ from the reality. So looking at these questions, only the speeding one had the overwhelming majority. And I'm not surprised by that because that tends to be our #1 traffic complaint in town is speeding autos in residential areas. So that one kind of fits the trend of anywhere we go. You can see here, this is kind of whether people observed any change in the amount of stop sign compliance, a 60-40 split. And ultimately, the last question we asked was for those people, we were trying to gauge how many people really did like the stop signs and how many people really didn't. And you can see we kind of had a 50-50 split there. So the reason I share these was not only to answer questions, but I think it kind of helps to demonstrate our point that we would like to gain some kind of consensus when we're working with people in their own neighborhoods to move forward with their complaints. We certainly continue to do all the steps, and we spell out all the steps that we do at the police department. Typically, traffic studies, enforcement, education, all those things are always options that we're going to pursue before we would even get to a petition process. This just gives us one more tool, so to speak, in our toolkit to help address those concerns of the residents, but also helps us village-wide to take a broader look at something rather than committing or not committing.
Well, you've got mail.
So I would be happy to entertain any questions or try and clarify anything that anybody might have.
Chief, is this program funded or budgeted in your current budget?
It is not. We don't. It would be hard to really anticipate costs. We've taken, unofficially, we've taken some measures to do these things. We work with Public Works to have additional signage put up, whether they're speed limit signs or additional parking signs or pavement markings, things like that. So they're typically kind of incidental costs that would fall within the Public Works budget itself. So Director, might be better to speak about the costs that have gone into it up to this point. But these aren't budgeted items that we could forecast, I would assume.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions?
I think just a quick comment. Thank you so much, Chief Durbin, for the information. And I think I'm guilty as anyone when somebody continually is talking about a situation that they feel is dangerous or a problem in their community. We really got to get the whole community buy-in. And I really appreciate you guys looking into this. I think it'll clear a lot of things up in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I moved to put this to the board next meeting or whenever.
Very good. Thank you, Trustee Carbonaro. That is it for our Committee of the Whole meeting this evening. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Trustee Udaney, seconded by Trustee Carbonaro. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Oh, Lauren is on mute.
Trustee Kammer,
Yes.
Carbonaro,
Yes.
Daney,
Yes.
Cabrera,
Yes.
Hopkins,
He's on mute.
Unmute yourself, Adam.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Ranky.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Stay safe, everyone.